Hello and welcome into another episode of Popcorn for Breakfast. If you're a film fan and you have friends that are film fans, there's a good chance that at some point this year, you've heard the phrase, the film industry is dying, or something similar to that. Today, we're going to talk about that. Is the film industry dying? Why are people saying that the film industry is dying? And if it is dying, what can be done to save it? Let's get into it.
This is Popcorn for Breakfast, presented by St. Louis Area Smoothie Kings. Now, here are your hosts, Cam and Kurt.
Thank you so much for joining us on this new episode of Popcorn for Breakfast. With me, as always, Kirk.
Hello, hello.
I am Cam, and we are here to get back away from some movie reviews. We've been doing a lot of movie review content. For those of you in the audience who are OGs and have been with us since the beginning, you know that movie reviews aren't all that we do. And recently it's kind of felt like that because we've got this awesome opportunity to go to screenings and we've been just swimming in tons of movie reviews. But it's good to get back to talking about the industry a little bit, talking about what's going on elsewhere. And I thought this would be a good topic for us to dive into, Kirk, because it really has been, if you're on film Twitter or film anything, Facebook groups, whatever, or even just talking to your friends who happen to be film fans, the talk of the town is that the film industry is dying.
Right. I mean, I remember when the only cool thing to do was go see a movie.
Absolutely.
Like, what are we doing this weekend? Well, obviously we're going to see a movie. You know, we're going to ride our bikes in the daytime and go to the theater at 7:00.
Yep. And it's certainly not like that. And I think that for some people, it's probably, you know, especially if you're a casual movie fan, which first of all, we're thrilled that you're here. We love having all manner of movie fans. Not everybody's at the theater every weekend. Not everybody can do that, whatever. But everybody loves movies to some degree, I'm convinced. So if you're casual, you're probably wondering, why are people talking about this? Why is the film industry dying? I mean, sure, we had COVID and things were really bad. I mean, theaters were closed, right? If the movie industry didn't die then, how could it be dying now? Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to get into a little bit of like the reason why people are talking about this, because obviously we had last year where it felt like things were great, right? Like movie industry is back. We had Barbenheimer. It was this huge thing. They both grossed like $1 billion. We were like, yes, we're back. Summer blockbusters, not even superhero movie type blockbusters. We're making tons of box office dollars. What's up? Well, this year, the box office year to date, so through now, which I think we're recording this on June 4th, the box office is down 25.8% versus last year. This is domestically, so that would be only in the United States. So that is the reason people are freaking out. You see movies like The Fall Guy and Furiosa, which have come out in recent weeks, and you think, those are movies that should be performing well in the box office, and they're not.
I am shook right now.
Are you?
If you're watching right now, I haven't watched the numbers collectively, just like on individual films, like, oh, they're never going to make that back. Like after marketing and sending the actor all over the place, like 25% down.
Yeah. And just like for sake of comparison, year to date 2023. So at this same point in 2023 versus 2022, it was up 34.7%. So that's why the tone and tenor of the conversation around the film industry was very different last year, because it felt like we're back. Like things are going well, even though it still hadn't reached the mark of like 2019 pre-COVID. But the question then becomes like, why is this happening, right? And I think I've fallen into this trap as well. A lot of people just think, oh, it's because of this, and they throw out one reason. For me, it was, oh, the movies are too expensive. Mm-hmm. And then as I got to thinking about it more, it's like, well, no, there's a ton of variables and things like that. You think about the movies are more expensive. There's tons more entertainment options at home. People are more used to finding entertainment at home because they did it for years.
Yes.
And look at the studios. They have changed the theatrical window. If a movie is grossing, let's say, like if it does less than 40 million and it's opening weekend at the box office, they're like, send it to VOD and then people can rent it at home, or they put it on their streaming platform, etc. So Kirk, I have to ask you, like, of these things, is it all of them? Is it some of them? Like, why is this happening?
I think it's some of them. For me, the ones that stick out are definitely cost. of the movie theater and the streaming wars and battles. So for like specifically, I'm gonna talk about the movie theater prices first. So a lot of theaters, when COVID but when COVID was relaxed and people were going back to the movie theaters, they rolled out dynamic pricing. And to which I think I even said on this podcast, like, I'm down with that, because if I want to pay for a seat that's not the front row, I would pay more for that, you know?
Yeah, premium seating.
If I have to sit front row, that should be a $6 seat. If I'm sitting like in the middle of the theater, in the middle row, in the middle section, and I get the perfect seat, yeah, I'll pay $13. But what we're seeing is we've seen movies at 11 o'clock at night on a weekday where we're paying $18. Yeah. Now, granted, we could sit wherever we want, but these movies, the content, the power of the stories are not withstanding. So they're like, that's an okay movie, but I didn't want to pay $18. And then I got a snack. I got popcorn and a soda, and that was $20 more. And so now I'm out $40 before as I walk home and pay for gas and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, this was the one reason that I thought was the biggest one, because people are pinching their wallets a little bit. They're cutting back their penny pinching is what I was looking for, because I
had to sell one of my kids to keep this up. I mean, it's rough.
I get it. It's rough out there. I mean, honestly, it's people are spending more money than they had to. There was historic levels of inflation going on. No industry is immune to that. Certainly not the film industry. And I've heard other people say, you know, the movie theaters in my town, in Indiana or Iowa or wherever, the prices didn't go up. And that's true for some people. But the problem that I'm having, I'm actually against dynamic pricing by seat location. I understand why you're for it. I prefer dynamic pricing by time.
I like that better.
If I'm seeing something at 10 p.m., I shouldn't have to pay $16.50 just because it's the only screen they have available is the ginormo screen, whatever. If I'm seeing like Little Women or I don't know. It's just like there needs to be more options for people who are seeing movies at different times. So that's definitely a big part. What are the other ones that stick out to you?
So that one was streaming for me.
Yeah, streaming.
Because at first I wasn't a big fan, like during COVID, about the movies releasing, because at the time I had a great TV, but I don't have the TV I have now, which is like 10 to 15 inches bigger. I'm like, man, now I really don't mind watching these at home. Like I watched Dune on a 45-inch screen TV. The first one, and I was like, okay, like I get it, cool, but I really wanted that theater experience. But now, like when I can just sit back after a long day and stream the latest movie that just like Fall Guy, 2 weeks, and then it was on you could purchase it. It's like, yeah, I'll do that if we hadn't gone to the theater. I really. Not the instant gratification, but things that like for the strict convenience of it, it's really nice to just be in my pajamas in my living room.
Absolutely. I think convenience is a factor. I think, you look at almost all of human ingenuity and innovation is to provide convenience, which I don't think is necessarily a good thing. I think we should have to try for things. I think that's a whole different conversation about like we're animals and we should have to earn things, but it's true. But I think the other thing is, streaming comes back to price too, right? If you're paying for Paramount Plus and Peacock and Netflix, which like I recommend, I'm someone who loves movies. I want to watch all of it. I love TV. I love to watch all the things. It gets expensive. And when you're paying for all of that and you have to justify paying for a movie ticket, it's like, well, I pay a ton for entertainment at home. I have thousands, millions of movies, maybe even at my fingertips here. I don't even think there are millions of movies in the world.
There are. Cameron. So then why do you have to go to the theater to pay more? Yeah,
you don't. And that's the other thing. And I think what I feel like is the biggest reason, the more I think about it, it's not prices, it's not streaming so much as it is the studios. The studios are self-sabotaging their own industry. They have thrown the theater window out the window. They won't let movies stay exclusive to theaters for long enough. And so they're kneecapping their box office. Like it used to be like this. And this is not like old. This is how it was in 2019 too. Sometimes a movie came out and people didn't know anything about it because they didn't spend a ton on marketing.
Right.
And so its first weekend would be kind of bad. It would be middle, whatever. But then social media would take place and they'd let people say, hey, they'd let the cinephiles go see it and be like, guys, this movie is sick. And you would see second weekends and third weekends and fourth weekends. And all of a sudden it's a huge deal. I mean, even more recently, you look at Elemental. When Elemental hit theaters, it did terribly.
Yes.
And the word on the street was like, whoa, another huge stinker for Pixar. What's Disney going to do? But then they started to market it through social media. Word of mouth started to pick up. It was the summer. They released it internationally. It started to pick up steam internationally, and it became a very profitable movie for them and a huge streaming subscriber generator when they brought it to streaming as well. So part of it is that I think these studios, I don't really understand the strategy. It's like we advertise. Then we watch the first weekend box office roll in, and if it's not, I don't know, $70 million or more, we're like, screw it. We'll put it on streaming in 4 weeks, or we'll put it on VOD in 2 weeks, and people can pay $20 to watch it at home.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so now the consumer has a totally new understanding of how this works. If it's like, oh, if I don't want to see it in the movie theater, no big deal. I can pay $20 to sit at home with my own snacks that are cheaper and see it then. Or if I don't even want to do that, I can wait until it appears 2 more weeks later on one of my streaming services. And who can't wait a month? Mm-hmm. The average consumer absolutely can.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the reason. And I think it's a huge problem.
Yeah, the marketing has to be insane because when you think about how things used to be, and you could think about appointment television, right? So like you would have the actors of these movies go on their press tour, and you would only be able to see them in a few different places, and everyone would see them in those few different places. Whereas now they can spend 4 to 5 days in a press room and see hundreds of different news outlets, which we would love to talk to any of you, by the way. Popcorn for breakfast. And if you don't subscribe to that person, you'll miss that interview and not be necessarily linked to the movie. So exposure seems like such a difficult thing with all of this as well.
It is. I think that's a really good point because I see a lot of people say like this movie's poorly marketed. Yes. I think it's something that's thrown out a lot. And I even say it a lot. This movie was poorly marketed. Well, it's also harder to market. Mm-hmm. You know, to your point, audiences live in all sorts of different spaces. And if it's social media, like, listen, they've got a catered feed that's catered to them. And if you're using social media, like retail media type spending, like on Twitter and things like that to show promoted things, you still have to pick audiences that you want to target. And it's tricky. I mean, it just really is a tricky landscape. So it is harder to market a movie. And like when we talk about the theater prices going up, what are the theaters supposed to do? I mean, they've got higher wages they have to pay their workers and less people going to the movies. So of course they're going to raise the ticket prices. I mean, it's just, It's really tough for all parties involved, which brings us to our next question, which is it true? Is all the panicking about the box office and things like that, is it granted? Like, is it justified? Is this industry dying?
That's tough.
And when I say the industry, I guess I really mean, I don't know. I guess we could go at a different way because you could say the film industry is dying. Now, I would say to that, like, films will never be dead. They are an art form. Mm-hmm. Books are not dead. Art, like painted art or drawn art is certainly not dead. Right. Vinyl records, music, things like that. Like maybe physical media goes more the way of vinyl, where it's like collector's items. But films will always be made and always exist. So is the movie theater model dying, or is the larger film industry dying? Like, what's your take?
Oh, that is a hard question, Cam. That's a very hard question.
It is.
Is the movie theater? I think that there needs to be a change. I don't know what that change is.
Yeah, so you're under the belief that, like, no, I like that. Like, it's the film industry, the movie theater industry is being disrupted right now.
Yes,
right?
by the streaming industry.
Mm-hmm. Which is crazy. Because think about Netflix. They came in as a disruptor of the home movie renting industry, right? And then they went on to disrupt the television and film studio industry by creating their own in-house media. Mm-hmm. And now they, and as well as the other platforms that have sprung out of the abyss, have come for the movie
for the box
theater
office
industry.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. Streaming has now disrupted 3 separate movie adjacent industries. And so you think it needs a change. What would it be?
The change that it would have to be would be to it has to be event-based, right? Because that's how Barbenheimer got to where it was.
Yep.
Even as people forget, Super Mario Bros. Came out the same year as Barbenheimer.
It did.
At the very top of the year. So also a $1 billion movie. So you have to make these $1 billion moves. Now, 2 of those were existing IP, and the other one was based on a true story. So how do you do that? How do you create something that gets people physically into the theaters, that makes it so, hey, I went to see this movie? Like, it has to be a talking point that if you miss it, people will say, I can't believe you didn't go see Barbie. I can't believe you didn't go see Oppenheimer or the Mario Bros. Who are you? Are you breathing? Like, what is it that could physically get them there versus that waiting period? I don't know what that it factor is.
I agree with that, in that those event movies are what has kept the film industry alive, but they are also part of what's killing it too, because I feel like it's do or die. Everything is like, it has to be $1 billion or it's worthless. And that's not really true. You know, like, those movies do have to be $1 billion because their budget's $500 million. Like, Barbie's budget was big. The Avengers, huge budget. Like, they have to make $2 billion in order to be successful. But like, what used to carry the film industry was more middle budget stuff. And if you look at some of the biggest success stories of the film industry over the last few years are movies like Megan, movies like Nope, weirdly, a lot of horror movies like Anyone But You, that were mid-budget, low, like, not huge giant set pieces, that were super profitable because they were well marketed, they were thoughtful, and they filled a need that was not there. People love to go to the movies for horror because it's horror, and people love to go for rom-coms because it's just a fun communal event. And so I think there will be a change. So my answer to the question, is the film industry dying, is, or the movie theater industry, is no. But it is changing. It is changing. I mean, it's not going to sustain. There's not going to be as many theaters. There's not, like, it's going to start to consolidate, which I hate for what it's worth. I really do hate that. And it's going to have to change. They're going to have to change the types of movies they make. They're going to have to change all sorts of things to compete with streaming. But I think moving into the last portion of the conversation, which is like, what can we do? Because your thing is like, it needs to change. Things are a mess, right? Which it is. It is a mess. And my thing is like, I don't think it's dying, but I think it is changing. So what is it that helps it? I'll go first on this one. For me, studios have to pick what they're trying to do. They have to, because they're posing an existential threat to themselves. You know, if they're trying to be all things to all people, we need people to buy this on VOD. We need people to stream it whenever it comes on streaming. We need people to see it in theaters. Impossible. Those are 3 separate audiences, and you're losing all of them by the way that you can't decide which way to go with things. They need to, if the theater industry matters to them, which I think it should, because I think it's typically a pretty high margin cash flow for them. I think it's a high margin revenue stream for them, and I think it is the easiest way to get people to have streaming and theaters. They need to start honoring those windows. And this comes partially to the directors have to push for this. I mean, we saw Christopher Nolan stick his flag in the ground and say, it's 90-day theatrical exclusive window or I'm out, right? It has to change back to that, because otherwise people will just wait for it to come to streaming. So if part of me is like, do the studios, because they know that, do they even want people at the theaters? What are they trying to do? It feels like for their shareholders, they're just trying to get subscriber numbers. But it feels like you could have both if you go back to have it release on streaming 90 days later. Like, because if it's uniform, then people won't know to expect it. But the competition has made it so crazy.
What if you made it longer? You extend that window, right? So think about before the days of streaming.
Yeah.
You had to wait 6 to 9 months before that movie hit VHS or DVD. Like that was what, like, you had to see it in theaters, or all your friends would be like, you'd be dodging spoilers for a full half to full year. So what if that window was no longer 90 days? What if it was 6 months?
Oof. I mean, I get what you're saying, and I think that, like, the biggest problem with that is that you've got a bunch of people standing, you've got a bunch of companies going like, who's going to do it? Who's going to release their film on streaming? And that's what started this whole thing.
It was Warner Brothers.
It was Warner Bros.
Right. So
they were like, screw it. They're all going on streaming right away. And everybody else was like, crap, what are we going to do?
They were making a safety conscious decision because of COVID. And it's no longer valid in any way, shape, or form, which no one does that anymore.
And I think they're trying to roll it back. So they're going to like, well, we'll do 30 days, but it's inconsistent. It's like this movie's 30 days, but this movie's this many days, and it's just a mess. They need to come up with something. And I think part of what will help is more consolidation of these companies. Like I just saw there was a merger, Paramount and Skydance.
Yes.
That's good. There needs to be some consolidation down. And there needs to be some people who are like, I don't need, or some people need to fail. Some of these streaming platforms need to fail. Yes. And some of them will. Like Peacock's well on its way to failing.
Peacock, please fail as soon as possible.
They lose tons of money every single year. It's not sustainable. So some of this stuff needs to thin out, and then maybe we can get back to normal. But to me, and you can tell me if you disagree, I don't think movies, I have to be careful how I say this, there will be movies. Like they will continue making movies. Now, the quality of movies and what types of movies, that part I'm a little more scared of because there's a lot of things working there with like the writers and actors strikes that change the way how much movies cost. You've got AI coming into the fold. You've got streaming, which changes the quality of movies. I mean, we've seen it on Netflix. Like Netflix movies are kind of like straight to TV movies in some ways at times. Like they're lower quality. They look like a Netflix movie. It can be bad. So I'm a little more worried about that, but I'm confident that movies will still exist.
Yeah. I think that, I said event-based. You're absolutely right. For the big budget movies, those ones have to be event-based to break even, honestly.
And the theaters do need those.
They need them because they need those people in those seats to get reminded how much fun it is to come to the theater. Those people who only come once or twice a year to say,
and they rely on that. I mean, they have to, like, it's almost like any business model.
Yeah.
You need that peak time of year where it's like you can advertise to a bunch of people for cheap. You can get everybody in. You're going to have lots of eyeballs. Like, you're exactly right.
That's right. It's like Christmas candy and Easter candy.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
But then, I can't tell you how many times I've seen a movie that the budget was $5 million and it's one of my favorite movies, or anywhere from $5 to $20 million. You're like, wow, they gave these people a chance. Like most Searchlight Studio Pictures films are like some of my favorite. I just love the idea of like breaking everything down to the least amount of show and CGI, and so much of it relies on story and characters to compel you.
Yep.
And there's something very powerful about that because we are built as humans, as storytellers. I love always going back to that. So I want those movies to do well too. The question is how to get people to those movies when they don't have the marketing dollars, when those stories are so powerful, sometimes bigger than the $1 billion movies.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think good conversation. I think the long and the short of it is that the TLDR is you and I both agree that the movie industry is changing.
Yes.
The movie theater model is even changing, but movies will still happen. Movies are still a thing. Something's going to happen that's going to figure all this out. I don't know exactly what it is yet, but they have to find some way to get consumers back to thinking that the movie theaters are important, or if they're like, that model doesn't matter to us anymore, that has to change. But there's going to be some sort of radical change that pushes it one way or the other, and then things will normalize. Right now, it's just chaos.
Hey, man, there's a lot of people that I don't agree with who bring pillows and blankets to their lounge seats, and I say, if that's what brings you to the theater, bring your pillows and blankets, please.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great point too. Like,
comfort.
If you like the movie theaters and you don't want to live in the world without movie theaters, the best way to keep that from happening is to go. Yes. And I know that it's like when people say, make sure you vote. Every vote counts, right? It's true though. Like it does. It feels small, but it does matter. This is truer
because there's no electoral college.
Yeah, true. It really does matter. And I feel the same way about physical media. You and I both love collecting movies. They are mostly collector's items these days, but collect them. Like, gather them. I can give you other reasons why you should do it as well, but at the very least, like, if you like to have movies on your shelf, buy them.
Yep.
Like, please, it's not it is small, but it's not. So let us know your thoughts. This is obviously a complicated issue. I have made the mistake of downplaying it to, it's just that it's too expensive or whatever. It seriously is multi-layered. There's a lot going on here. Let us know your thoughts on what's happening with the movie theater industry. If you're new to the show or if you're recurring but you don't follow us, please be sure to follow us on all of our different social media platforms, which include Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We're on Discord. We have our own Discord server where we talk about movies. It's a great time. Go to our website, popcorn4breakfast.com for new blog content. You can also see all of our videos and podcast episodes there. Otherwise, we want to give a special thanks to our executive producer, Ryan, and our title sponsor, St. Louis Area Smoothie Kings. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.